It's a lot more boring than I've remembered, for sure. But anyways, my name is George, and this is Chris, and today we are going over Joel Schumacher's Batman and Robin from, 1997. How was your experience?
Oh, I was kind of bored and just like felt a little bit bruised and battered by the like nonstop loud nonsense nothingness of the movie. Kind of like got beaten into submission by the movie, and it was to do with the lighting and the colors, and yeah.
It's what every good director wants. The sensation of being beaten into submission. I don't really know the DC universe that well. I know who Batman is. I know the basics about him. He's always been a serious character, isn't he?
There was 60s Batman.
Right.
There was the show and the movie, and those had lots of puns and were colorful and were silly. From Tim Burton forward, no one was doing what this movie does.
Do you want to try to summarize this, or should we just go right into it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that there was that much of a plot. Basically, Batman, Robin, and very briefly, Batgirl against Mr. Freeze and Poison Ivy. And Bane. Well, I was going to say Bane doesn't do much, but no one does much. I don't know. Well, yeah, this is what I remembered. Like, isn't this kind of like... The two jokes I remember when people bring up this movie are, like, making jokes about this and bat nipples, and then, like, talking about the credit card later.
For some reason, I always thought it was somewhere in the middle. I didn't know it was right off the bat. No pun intended.
I actually didn't hate it. In retrospect, I thought it was funny that it was just, like, this extreme stylistic choice, both in terms of the costume design and the presentation. I felt like this was just like a full-blown toy commercial. My memory is vague of like what 90s toy commercials looked like, but I really felt like these early moments where you just kind of see, like, they're just standing there in spotlights, and then like the vehicles are revealed and stuff, and it all just like is very straightforward toy selling.
Yeah, I mean, if you slap a Mattel logo on this, it's basically an ad.
One thing I found while clicking around, just reading a little bit about Batman and Robin, was with Kevin Feige, where he talks about how Batman and Robin is like one of the most important superhero movies because it created this like sea change in how to present these characters, which I think makes a lot of sense. This showed everyone we couldn't do things this way anymore.
Yeah.
We had to find a new thing to do with comic book characters.
It is the E.T. video game
right.
of superhero movies.
So what I learned is that Joel Schumacher wanted to do a dark Batman.
Oh.
And he really pushed for a dark Batman, and the studio told him no, that they didn't want it dark. He said that he wanted to do The Dark Knight. It's this lost project that's like Scarecrow teams up with Harley Quinn. They have a plot. Their plot like drives Batman insane, and he ends up committed to Arkham Asylum.
Oh, that would have been fun.
Yes, it sounds pretty cool.
I'm gonna say that this movie is actually Joel Schumacher's Malicious Compliance.
I love that idea.
Right?
Yeah.
He went, you want it light? You don't want dark?
Yeah.
Okay, let me just make the dumbest fucking lighthearted, cartoony Roadrunner movie there is.
Chicks dig the car.
This is why Superman works alone.
I know it's just a throwaway joke, right? But because Clooney delivers it so flatly, as he does every line in this movie, it makes this line sound more like he genuinely wishes Robin just isn't fucking around.
Don't wait up, Al.
I'll cancel the pizza.
Pizzas, and then later Robin shouts "Cowabunga!"
Cowabunga, yeah.
I mean, this Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. What I was wondering is, are they actually referencing each other, or is both the movie and the show referencing something older?
Oh, that's a good question.
Okay, so Google quickly said that 1950s, the first popularization by a character on the US television program Howdy Doody is the usage of the word "cowabunga."
Whoa.
Yeah, it later became associated with surfing culture and was further popularized by Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
There you go, viewers. The history of Cowabunga.
In this universe, there's only one absolute. Everything freezes.
There was only one absolute, and I know that the line "everything freezes" is pretty iconic, and it's great, but I'm also really bummed out that the punchline isn't just zero, because that's literally the one absolute.
Nice. Maybe it's because already in Running Man, there's that part where he defeats Sub-Zero, and he's like, "Here lies Sub-Zero, now plain Zero."
I really dislike the fighting sequences in this movie, just because it has so many unnecessary punch-ins and zooms.
Yeah.
doesn't do anything. Because, like, for example, if you watch older Hong Kong cinema, especially like martial art films, the punch-ins and the zooms are to exaggerate the impact or to exaggerate an emotion. In this case, they're just done at random, it feels like. And it doesn't do anything besides making your eyes hurt.
This is an eye-hurty movie for sure. I could have written this at any time in the movie, but we were about 10 minutes in here, and I just wrote down, like, there's been no dialogue that isn't one-liners for so long. There's, like, no real content.
I mean...
Yeah.
Arnold's already a huge star at this point. Maybe he charges by the word.
What killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age!
Famously not the thing that killed the dinosaurs. And I think they would have known that even back in 1997.
Oh, they knew.
So, it's a great line, but it's just...
He just didn't have a comment gun with him. The other thing that made me laugh about this opening sequence is just that Batman and Robin are, like, totally ineffective. And I think that's actually kind of true for a lot of the movie. They show up here, they punch some goons, but they just make everything worse, essentially, in this situation. Like, Freeze is trying to steal his diamond. He gets away with the diamond. Robin gets frozen. Teamwork between Batman and Robin is having trouble, so that's what this is setting up. But it also just, like, the movie starts with them just being pretty huge failures, which is funny.
I do have to say, like, Arnold is the sole reason that the opening first act is, like, endurable. Because he really carried the whole first 13 minutes. Even all he has is one-liners. His performance is just fun to watch because he's so over the top.
Agreed. And the suit is cool, I think.
Yeah, and it looks great. The art directing in this movie is really good, though. I mean, after this scene where Freeze gets away, that's basically where the movie kind of falls off a cliff in terms of enjoyment. Except for the brief moments when Arnold does return periodically and when Uma Thurman shows up. Okay, so this is the scene that introduces us to this movie's version of Bane. You know what he reminds me of? This reminds me of that fucking idiot who injected oil into his arm to create fake muscles and it got all infected.
Oh my god, I don't know about that. I mean, now I do. That's awful. But it does end with my favorite line of the entire movie, which is when right before the mad scientist kills her, when he's like, I'm afraid you'll have to die.
This... I think I can call this a glam up, right? Like a glam up scene, essentially.
Yeah, she comes out. She looks like a Destiny's Child when she appears.
Mm-hmm.
And she really is, like, from the first moment, her performance. She's the other one who's just very entertaining and seems to be striking the right note with this awful material.
Help! I am Mother Nature, and the time has come.
This little scene with her just monologuing to nobody really told me that she and Arnold were the only two people in this movie who knew what kind of movie they were in.
Yeah.
Because also, if you think about this scene, she's doing exposition to nobody, which I can imagine would be incredibly difficult to do.
Yeah. I'm like, yeah, George Clooney could have just got on this train somehow too. And then I'm just thinking, like, in 60s Batman with Adam West, that's really silly, but Adam West is also hitting the tone right. And, like, Batman is also in this tone, and it works so much better. But, yeah, especially because her and Arnold are nailing it so well, the others feel really just, like, left behind.
She's great. She's like, one of the most enjoyable part. The only enjoyable part, really, in this movie.
Yeah, I think so. So then we get to, we find out what Freeze's motivation is. And there's this tragic story with his wife who has a disease, and now he's frozen her, and he's trying to cure her of a fictional disease. I forgot what they called it, but
McGregor syndrome.
McGregor syndrome. There you go. It affects Jedi everywhere. I thought the image of him standing with her was cool, and the image of her in the tank was cool, and I did like this part of it in general. It's this very simple, human, grounded motivation that leads him on to supervillainy. The other subplot of this movie is that Alfred is sick and dying.
Of the same disease.
It's the exact thing that you were talking about. Like, there are numerous scenes about how this guy is dying and at the end of his life. They can't really do anything with them because it's not like this movie is going to become a serious exploration of end of life and sickness and grief and stuff. But they keep having scenes about it, and you're like, well, this is kind of depressing. Like, I'm just watching, like, this beloved character be sad and be in a sickbed. Couldn't Wayne Enterprises, like, help? I feel like there genuinely is just this awkward butler relationship where Alfred would never ask for help and Bruce just, like, will not think about it or offer it because he's just like this thoughtless rich guy.
Yeah. The relationship is a lot more Downton Abbey then.
Yeah. There's no like, I'm gonna spend millions to try to find this cure or anything. Only Freeze is working on the cure.
Which reminds me, if you're interested in listening to the full-length discussion of this episode, you can find it on our Patreon. The link is on screen and in the description down below. If you go over there, you will get the entire recording in an audio format like a podcast. Check it out, support us, help us keep doing this. We really appreciate it. Anyways.
Poison Ivy's whole thing is like, we can save the Earth, we can be more environmentally friendly, and I've prepared this huge report. I've already been working for Wayne Enterprises, and here's a big report on like what we could do. Mm-hmm. And Bruce Wayne is like, fuck off. And he's specific. He's like, people come first. She's like, don't focus on space. Help us clean the Earth. And Bruce is like, nah, I'm not really into it. And some ladies next to him is like, we have Batman and Robin to protect us from things. And I was like, oh, Batman and Robin are going to protect you from climate change? So basically, Bruce Wayne, all through this movie, is exactly the billionaire shithead that you would think he is anyway.
Which is really sad because as far as I understand, Bruce Wayne is the mask, is actually the persona that he's pretending to be. Between all the characters that are in this movie, ironically, the one person who can truly, help with climate change is probably Mr. Freeze.
That's a fair point. All right, we need a contemporary remake. I was just so glad after we watched Wild Wild West and got the erotic dance sequence there. We got a much better one here. When Poison Ivy has this ridiculous strip sequence where she's dressed as a pink gorilla and then slowly reveals her slender feminine hands. And then it's actually, I later learned, a reference or an homage or just straight up lifted from a 1932 movie called Blonde Venus, where Marlene Dietrich did the same strip, basically.
I actually had to go back on this scene and watch it with the music off because the music really jumped out at me for how much it changed all of a sudden.
Yeah.
It went from very fitting seductress music and then suddenly it just became like cheesy, loyalty-free softcore porn music.
And then Poison Ivy uses her seduction power.
Pheromone, something.
Pheromone, make everyone, including Batman and Robin, fall in love with her. And because they're at a charity auction where like women are auctioned off, which...
famously what billionaires do.
Batman and Robin get into a bidding war over Poison Ivy, culminating in one of the all-time classic moments where Batman reveals that he has his goth card.
Okay, so I'm gonna dive way too deep into the logic of this.
Yes, please.
This means that Batman, like the entity, is literally like a legally binding, registered on paper person in order to have this, because he needs to have a social insurance number, he needs to have a photo ID and everything, right? It could be that Bruce Wayne owns a bank, so then he just opens up an account and be Batman. But there still has to be like government questions going, why is Batman a client?
So are there just like millions of like low-level bureaucrats who know who Batman is because they've been processing his paperwork?
Exactly. And also, what situation would Batman be in that would require a credit card while on mission? Did he buy a ticket to enter this event?
I just wanted to say that I did think those two shots where Robin like breaks and he slides to the very end of the finger. This one little moment was like very cool and cinematically satisfying. It was a character-based moment being done in a suitably epic way. Yeah, if only the movie was like this.
It is a very impressive achievement that this movie made with its second and first half of the third act, which is everything's really over the top, but it's also really boring at the same time.
I'm not even sure what to blame. While we rewatch it now and I look at some of these frames, I'm like, oh, that is like visually interesting and it was kind of daring to do that and stuff. But taken in aggregate while you're actually sitting there watching it, there's just like, there's so little plot progression. And then there's so much high intensity noise and action. And then there are just so many goddamn puns all the time. It's just so exhausting.
Hey, I said, you got a visitor. Your sister is here to see you.
Okay, and then we get to this point where Ivy breaks Freeze out of the prison.
She tells them she's Freeze's sister, and they're just like totally fleeced by this sister gambit, and they're like, oh yeah, if you're his sister, then obviously go visit him, like in Arkham Asylum, in her supervillain outfit. Just like a supervillain going to visit a supervillain, and no one sees it coming. I guess this is a world where people are just like in costume and walking around. So yeah, maybe they would be visiting then.
Okay, so Barbara... what's her last name in this movie? Walters?
No idea. Yeah,
Is it supposed to
Barbara
be Barbara-
Walters, that's gotta be it.
Sneak into Alfred's CD.
I would hope that Alfred in particular would be good with passwords and cybersecurity.
Also, Batgirl types excruciatingly slow. She's doing the one finger poke on the keyboard.
Alicia Silverstone finds the Batcave, but as she enters it, it like triggers the intruder alert. But the intruder alert is just a video of Alfred saying intruder alert, and it just plays over and over again.
I was also very disappointed that with all the laser grids, we didn't get a Alicia Silverstone version of Entrapment.
I thought you were gonna say Resident Evil, so there you go. Either would have been good.
So great.
We get Uma in this, like, unfurling flower, which I think is, like, a really cool piece of production design. But it, again, seems like a really obvious visual callback to, like, the birth of Venus. That's actually the second time Uma has done that, because in the Adventures of Baron Munchausen, she is introduced coming out of the clamshell. So Uma clearly inspires that sort of connection. Also, I was sad that Poison Ivy didn't try her seduction power on Batgirl. What's up with that?
We can't let the children know that women can be attracted to other women. That would just be wrong. The year 1997.
They do have a giant showdown in a bunch of vehicles. It's as loud and annoying as everything as all the rest. But I did like, there were at least shots in it. There were moments where I was feeling like it was really kind of cool and kind of fun. If nothing else, we just don't get as many sequences like this anymore. They literally just built all these giant vehicles, built this ridiculous set, and they're actually just like ripping around.
The freezes the whole city, and we're kind of going into the climax.
Oh yeah, so one of the things that happens in the climax is that they need to like hack together. Because she's like a computer science whiz and Robin is normally the hacker, and it's like this competitive moment where they gotta hack, and she's like, I'm gonna hack harder than you, and he's like, I'm gonna hack harder than you. They say all this nonsense, like at one point he's like, we're gonna have to do this upside down, but no one does anything upside down. It's not quite at the two idiots, one keyboard level, but it's pretty close.
It's pretty bad, yeah. When Freeze freezes the whole city, and then the heroes thaw the city, what you should be finding is millions and millions of dead bodies, because freezing tends to cause cells to burst due to ice crystal formation,
right,
puncturing the membrane. So, and also, buildings are also flash frozen and then thawed, which means that there would be like billions, if not trillions, of dollars of damages to infrastructure due to rapid freezing of metal. Basically, Gotham should be a wasteland by now.
And just for those who haven't seen the movie's answer to that is that as long as you unfreeze in less than 11 minutes, everything is fine. 11 minutes, by the way, also the amount of time at the end of Dark Knight Rises. She says, you've bought the city 11 minutes, or whatever.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Is that a Batman and Robin joke? I hope so.
I hope so too. Maybe that's why she gave a terrible death performance as a nod.
That's a great excuse for actors. Anytime you give a bad performance, just say it was an homage to Batman and Robin.
Surprise. I am your new cellmate.
I also found this ending very dark, actually. So, Poison Ivy has been revealed having attempted to kill Victor's wife, and now he's, like, in a prison cell with her. And the implication, so far as I understand, is that he's just going to, like, torture her indefinitely for years while they are trapped in here together, which is, like, pretty horrific.
I feel like there is a great short film somewhere inside this movie.
Yeah.
Like, if you were to remove all the Bruce Wayne, Robin, Barbara, and Alfred scenes and leave behind just Freeze and Ivy scheming and then fighting Batman occasionally, it probably would have been a great, campy, little fun short film.
All right, viewers, it's to you.
All right, how do you wanna rate this movie?
I read in the IMDb trivia that Mr. Freeze has 27 puns. Anyway, I'm happy with that. I'm gonna give it a 27 out of 100.
I rate this Alicia Silverstone's career. It had great potential on paper, even exciting at the beginning, but then it just dragged and petered out.
Poor Alicia.
That's all there is for Batman and Robin. Let us never speak of this again. Next week, we are doing the infamously, well, it's just a 2-hour commercial, that is Mac and Me.
Oh god, I'm not looking forward to Mac and Me.
Okay, alright, that's it. We're done. I'm gonna
Awesome.
stop rolling. Oh yeah, press like and subscribe and all that shit.